Welcome to Unfilter That Lens. I'm your host, Jackie Douglas-Jones, wife, mother, therapist, life coach, and a lifelong mental health warrior. I'm passionate about sustainable recovery for all those dealing with mental health issues. Unfilter That Lens Season 1 covered the topic of anxiety. Season 2 dives deep into the realities of depression. Join me on the path to healing as we navigate, grow, and learn together. Come on, let's go. Today we're delving into a topic that is deeply important and I think often misunderstood, and that is depression. So let's saddle up. So it's important to note that when it comes to depression, no one's experience is the same. Like there might be similarities, there might be similar symptoms, but actually people's lived experience of depression differs from person to person. There are so many different types of depression, and they each have like their own unique symptoms and challenges. And really what we want to do today is go into a few of those, maybe the most common form of depression that we can try and educate ourselves on, become aware of, and give you tools maybe to see and be cognizant of what those around you are going through. Oftentimes we don't know that someone is depressed because they will mask it. They look happy and smiley and interactive and they're in the social gathering, but actually what's going on behind the scenes is far more dramatic than what they are showing us. And that's something important to note. Like oftentimes we'll say, oh, they're not depressed. They seem fine. I mean, they're looking so good. Oh my goodness, let's not do that. If someone tells you that they're suffering with depression, please take it seriously. Okay, let's dive in. The first of our depressive disorders is something called MDD, which is like major depressive disorder. Okay, often referred to just as depression. Okay, that's your main type of depression. And with this type of depression, you would be experiencing persistent feelings of sadness, as well as like loss of interest in life in general. Like you wouldn't be able to do the normal things that you like doing. So like say you gardening is your thing, like that is your happy place. That is where you find yourself, right? Flowers, seedlings, like it's a happy vibe. All of a sudden you no longer want to do that. Doesn't interest you, not interested. And that feeling of love and passion that you had for gardening has flown out the window. That's just an example, guys, but you can put your own examples in. This type of depression lasts for about 2 weeks and oftentimes longer. So like quite a progressive depressive disorder. And you can come out of it, but sometimes you're going to need help, right? Coming out of that. So people who are struggling with MDD may experience some, if not all of these following symptoms. So, keep a watch. So fatigue and lack of energy, right? Just that feeling of not wanting to do anything, cannot do anything, just utterly fatigued. Changes in appetite and weight. Those are big things. With depression, you get maybe overeating or undereating. But there's a very distinct change in their appetite and in their weight. Sleep disturbances, whether it's insomnia or sleeping too much. So oftentimes people with depression will go for 2-3 nights without sleeping at all. That is dangerous. That is a very dangerous scenario. When someone with depression is suffering with insomnia and they are literally not sleeping, that sends them into a spiral. So please be aware of that and please be on the lookout for that because it is a very telling symptom. Another symptom is difficulty in concentrating or making decisions. Little things like, should I have tea or coffee? Should I go to the store or not? What groceries should I buy? Do I want to see my friends or not? Like, they can't actually make a decision. It's very hard. So they might go, I don't know. There's a difficulty in actually, and it's not procrastinating. It's actually just a real difficulty in making a decision. They often feel feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt, and there are sometimes thoughts of death and suicide. Now, be very careful here, because oftentimes people with MDD will not show you that they are having thoughts of death and suicide. It will be pretty much undercover and you won't know. Be aware of that. So MDD, like other types of depression, is a really hard burden to bear, and the feelings can often be overwhelming, very heavy. And most people who have MDD feel like they literally are under the weight of a rock. It feels like they are being pressed down and being pressed in from all sides. Next, we have persistent depressive disorder, or known as PDD, or there's another name which I had to actually really do my research in how to pronounce this, and I think I'm getting it right. For all you mental health professionals out there, no judgy please if I get it wrong. I think it's dysthymia. Dysthymia. So there's also that. So if you hear of that, basically that is PDD, persistent depressive disorder. Now, this form of depression is a very low level depression. It is a chronic form of depression, and it can last for years, right? While it's not as severe as MDD, people who have PDD will still experience a list of lengthy symptoms, like a long, lengthy list of symptoms. And we also need to be aware that sometimes the low-level depression that someone is experiencing on a daily basis is very easy to cover up, but it is consistently and persistently there. So some of those symptoms are, again, fatigue, big depression light bulb moment when someone is just, and I'm not talking about like people with chronic illness, or maybe ladies, if you're suffering with menopause, one of those symptoms is fatigue. I'm talking about literally not being able to get out of bed in the morning, like literally not being able to lift your head. You are just exhausted. And even the thought of just getting up to brush your teeth or go to the toilet is just too much to handle. Like it's a proper thing. Do you know what I mean? So another symptom, a feeling of hopelessness, low self-esteem, and I think the other one is like difficulty in experiencing joy. Like almost like this feeling of numbness, like feeling very, very numb and removed, and just finding it incredibly difficult to experience joy for yourself, but also for others. You can fake it, like totally fake it, but it's hard. The symptoms might not be as pronounced as MDD, but they kind of linger in the background, and they kind of that undercurrent that kind of seeps into your daily life, and it starts to affect your daily life and the things that you normally find fun and exciting, and it just everything, it's almost like someone puts a filter on it, like a damper, and it doesn't seem as bright and as lovely as it once was. So now let's turn our focus to bipolar disorder. Now, this type of depression is very widely known, right? And I often find, which is so interesting, if someone is having a bad day or, has terrible mood swings, people will go, oh, they're so bipolar. Guys, bipolar depression is hectic, okay? And the person who has bipolar is the one that is hurting the most, right? It is an incredibly difficult form of depression. And this particular type of depression involves episodes of depression, right? So it can include periods of mania or hypermania. So like being so excited, loving life, doing things that you wouldn't normally do, saying things that you wouldn't normally say, being the life of the party when you're actually not really so inclined to do that. You know, little telltale signs we kind of go, ooh, Then it's the hypomania, so the fall, right? So when we see bipolar, we're looking at this kind of motion, right? Up and down and up and down. And the mania might last for quite a long time, and then they crash, and then they go through the lowest of lows. So when you think low and high, think of the lowest of lows, like minus, and then think of the highest of highs. Euphoric, like absolutely euphoric. Bipolar disorder takes you from one end of the spectrum to the next, right? You swing like woo. It's a very difficult disorder. When they're in the manic phase, they may feel, again, euphoric, energetic. They can also swing to irritable and frustrated. These are also happen in the manic phase. Aggressive, over the top, getting easily agitated or frustrated. It's like having like two extremes, you know, with no in between. There's no like happy medium that they operate in. The lows of depression are contrasted with the highs of the mania. So here we go. Have you ever sort of experienced moments when your mood swings like a pendulum? And it's that feeling of like being really upset and then really happy, or usually the opposite, being really happy and then something happens and you just plummet, right? Many individuals who battle bipolar disorder find it very difficult to manage their emotions, and that is why it's so essential for them to navigate the highs and lows with professional support. So if that is you, please get to a professional as soon as possible. Another type of depression to mention is called SAD. Appropriate, no? And that's seasonal affective disorder. And we usually find SAD affects individuals who stay in climates where it's bitterly cold, right? The sun doesn't come out too often. I know for me, my daughter, who is in England at the moment, has found it incredibly difficult. Coming from a place like South Africa, where our summers are beautiful and hot, and our winters are, I will say, milder, but like it gets cold, like we have some snow and things, but we see a lot of sun still. We see a lot of sun. It does rain, but not as much as in England. So for my daughter, it's been incredibly difficult navigating these really dramatic winters when she's not used to the level of cloud cover, of rain, of overcast. She's used to sunshine, because in South Africa, we do have sunshine during winter, and quite a bit of it. Like the name suggests that it occurs at a specific time of year, right? Seasonal affective disorder. And it's usually in the winter when that natural sunlight is scarce. And vitamin D is low. They're low levels, you know. So those battling with SAD may experience similar symptoms to MDD, like you can, very similar symptoms to MDD, but they often, what happens is, as the season changes, so as they hit that spring into summer, their mood starts to change because the natural sunlight starts to become more predominant. And as the season goes, they kind of get out of that feeling of of depression. The lack of sunlight actually has a significant impact on the mood and energy and overall well-being of those suffering with seasonal affective disorder. Lastly, I want to touch on postpartum depression. This is very close to my heart. A type of depression that can actually occur in women after giving birth. It often includes symptoms like extreme sadness, anxiety, exhaustion, that can often make it very challenging for new mothers to complete the daily care routine and tasks for themselves and their families. It's important to note that this is not just a case of the baby blues. I've experienced the baby blues. That is something that I know a bit about. Postpartum depression is a serious condition that requires awareness and treatment. I speak a bit about postpartum depression a little bit more extensively because my husband and I had spoken about postpartum depression quite extensively because my mom suffered terribly with it. And back in those days, with both my sister and I, the treatment for postpartum depression was possibly non-existent. Like, some of the treatments included shock therapy, and women were seen as basically being hysterical. They were literally put on medication that would turn them into zombies. Like, they would literally be walking around unable to perform normal daily tasks, right? Some women ended up in very inhumane and torturous conditions, and as I said before, in shock therapy. My mom, thankfully, has always been open about her experiences as a young new mom. My mom and dad married when my mom was 19. She had my sister and then had me. So by the time my mom was 21, she had 2 kids. And she wasn't even out of her teens, so there was no real help for her. There was no real support system for her, bearing in mind that her mother had passed away 4 weeks after her wedding. I think that's right. Might be wrong. But it was definitely not taken seriously, and women were often severely mistreated, locked up, and not given the treatment that they so desperately needed. My mom was very open about her postpartum depression because she realized that if my sister and I were going to have kids, we needed to be aware of it, and we needed to be aware that it could be genetic, right? I don't know if it is, guys. Haven't done the neuroscience research on that, or the genetic research. For my mom, there was literally no help and no understanding and no reprieve. How she actually managed to get through it and is still standing to this day is actually beyond me. And because of that, I knew that if it ever happened to me, I actually wanted my husband to get me help ASAP. And I was adamant about that. But nowadays, I must say, PPD is a more widely understood condition, but somehow still carries quite a stigma, which is really sad, because those experiencing postpartum depression often feel judged, excluded, ashamed, guilty. But if PDD is left untreated and undiagnosed, it can then become other forms of depression, which could then become a lifelong struggle. For myself, when I gave birth to my twins back in 2006, I experienced what was known as the baby blues. I had 3 kids under the age of 3, twins, like double the joy, right? But actually, it was hard. And it was actually my mother who gently but firmly pointed it out to me. And I didn't actually need any more convincing. The fact that my mother was seeing symptoms and signs spoke volumes, because I know that if someone had taken that time to give her that attention and was watching her that closely, it would have been a different story for her. So I didn't need much convincing when my mom said, listen, girly, I think we need to look at this very seriously. And believe me, I was in that doctor's office so quickly. I was in there like virtually the same day. I had 3 kids under the age of 3. I mean, who was I kidding? Like, I wasn't gonna. I mean, my husband was traveling internationally like 7 or 8 times a year. It was hectic for me. I felt like a single parent most of the time. I was very much judged, very judged. I was very young to have 3 kids under the age of 3. I think I just before my 30th birthday, which I thought was quite fantastic, actually. Like, I didn't think it was that young. But I'm quite grateful so grateful actually, that my mom and my dad and my husband were incredibly supportive. And I had really just a rock star group of friends who were nowhere close to having children, but who were there for me in every way, shape, and form. But it did feel heavy. It felt very, very heavy. And it felt lonely. I just want to say, if there are any new moms out there, or any of you who know moms who are struggling and feel like perhaps they might be suffering from PPD or the baby blues, please reach out. It costs you nothing just to reach out and say, like, do you need anything? Can I help you? Please get help, and get it now, because it's not your fault and you are not alone. And even if it was your fault, it wouldn't matter. Just get help. It's not your fault. That's the long and the short of it. And you are not alone. I'm grateful that I had the support that I did, and I'm grateful that I was able to make it through to the other side without any lasting effects. As we wrap up our overview of depression, please remember, it's really important, please remember that depression can present differently from person to person. And I know I said that earlier on in our little podcasty, but it really is different from person to person. And so being aware of the symptoms, being aware of the associated symptoms can really help in diagnosing or getting help for a person when someone is recognizing what is going on. Because sometimes the person that it's happening to, they can't recognize it. They can't see it. And it's important that if you know someone who's struggling with depression, that you get educated and informed so that you can help them to seek out the kind of help that can actually lead to recovery. And that's what we want, right? We want someone in recovery. We want someone to be thriving in life instead of just existing and coping. And the thing is, as I said before, depression does not discriminate. We have to understand that sometimes someone can seem very well put together, but behind the scenes, there's a different situation. So please be kind. Please be patient. Please get educated. Please be informed. Please don't shame or guilt anyone who has depression. Please don't speak down to them or look down on them. It is not their fault. They have no control over what they are doing sometimes, and it's up to us as fellow travelers in the world to be informed, to be cognizant and mindful that everybody has a story. Things are going on in the background that we might not know anything about, and it's really, really so important, guys. Please, I can't stress it enough. Mental health is such a big thing. Please be aware of your surroundings. Please reach out if you are someone struggling. Please, please, please. A phone call to a friend just to say, help me. I know that's hard. If you're listening today and you have recognized some of these symptoms, these things that we've been talking about, please reach out to someone. Remember, you matter, your journey matters, and you are not alone. So until next time, take care of yourself and be kind to your mind.